Soka family. Happy to be back with you. This is Two Sisters of a Certain Age Conversations with a Therapist and a Doctor. So, we are doing another Two Soka supplement, which means what, Candy? What's that all about?
It's like a bonus episode for
Ooh,
those super special people who subscribe, and we will be talking about common questions in our field, anything that pops up, current events, and we'll give you our spin on it from a therapeutic and a medical standpoint.
yeah. So, this is, just kind of a bit of a free for all. But I'm going to start today by talking about some common questions about therapy. So as you know, I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist. I love what I do. I love being able to work with my clients. But there are some common questions that people have. And the first question, Candy, is why seek therapy? Like,
Hmm.
why do I even need this? And before I answer, Candy, I want to ask you, why seek therapy?
Well, as you go through life, stuff happens to you, and you think you're processing it, and you may not be processing it effectively. And you may need somebody to help you navigate those emotional changes
Right.
and the responses in your body because some of those ways of coping are maladaptive.
Yeah. So, and Candy is spot on. So, the idea of therapy is like you are now provided with a safe space to have these conversations, to really go in and process some of the things that you have had to deal with over your lifetime. And it's people think like, oh, well, I could just talk to my sister. I can call Candy and tell her what's going on. I can talk to my best friend, and that's great. We need those relational
Friendships.
outlets. Yes,
Yeah.
we absolutely do. But guess what? My sister cannot be objective. When I call her to vent, to share, what have you, she is going to be very much on my side of whatever the argument, the thought, the message is, as opposed
Protective.
protective.
Uh-huh.
Like I'm thinking back right now,
Give
but
me
as
names
opposed,
and numbers.
right,
Okay? Yeah.
but as opposed to a therapist who is now a very objective person in your life, definitely supportive of you, but somebody that can think, have you considered this?
Hmm.
What are your thoughts around this? As opposed to your sister, your best friend, like, we're going for it, we're doing it. This person allows you the space to consider things from different perspectives.
Yeah.
Have you noted that this could be related to this other incident that you had that occurred before for you?
Right.
The therapist allows to connect dots.
Yeah.
Um, my clients are always really surprised, like, how did you remember that? I told you that a year and a half ago. And I don't know what it is. It's a muscle that I've learned to flex and use and strengthen. But I am able to say, I remember when. And when I help my client connect the dots, like the light switch can go on.
Yes, definitely.
A friend, a sister, a coworker, they're not taking in your stories and having that timeline the way I do. Does that
Right.
make sense? So, oh, go ahead, Candy.
Um, of course it makes sense. But the thing is, sometimes a therapist will tell you stuff that may not be, or will show you things that may not be pleasant to hear.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and if you put the burden on a friend and the friend says it, it might ruin the friendship.
Right,
So you
right.
really shouldn't be putting uh, friends in the position of like carrying the weight of heavy stuff.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because there, if something goes sideways, there may be guilt associated with it, and so your friends can be supports, but it's the same reason you don't want to go to your friend who's a doctor.
Right, right.
It's
Mm-hmm.
just you lose objectivity.
Absolutely.
Hmm.
Absolutely. And the reason why we seek therapy is because we recognize that we need help.
Mm-hmm.
We need help talking through these issues, processing an incident, just coming to terms with where we are in life, and finding that objective person to be able to say, I need some help with this. I mean, that is a huge step forward in you taking control of your emotions, of your trauma, of your life, and helps you to move forward. The other day, in my class, I had my students write a paper for me, and someone shared that having written this paper was very self-reflective, right? I was asking some deep questions of my students, and she said that having had that opportunity, she realizes that she didn't process some of the things that had occurred with her before,
Yeah.
right? And now having had written, she's like, I think I need to start journaling. So she found a way, and journaling is something that we talk about a lot in therapy, how you can get the things up and out of your body and onto a piece of paper,
Mm-hmm.
and how that's a really great skill to employ. But it was great how this student of mine said, I see the benefit
Right.
of that.
Now, a couple of things with regard to your students. Sometimes you don't realize you need therapy until you encounter a situation and you're triggered and you
Mm-hmm.
realize you haven't processed it.
Right.
Now, with regard to journaling, I think journaling is good for some people. But like
Mm-hmm.
when I was told to journal, and when the kid's father left me, and I go back to that stuff, and it's so pathetic. I don't want to remember how pathetic I was, how needy, how tearful, how depressed it doesn't work for me, because then it just kind of brings me back to those really negative feelings. So
Right.
it's
Right.
it's it's not one size fits all. You're going to have
Absolutely
to
not.
find whatever modality works for you best.
Right, right. And Candy, about your journals from the past, oftentimes it's it's just the experience of writing it down and setting it aside. So I have had clients that are like that will journal, but they don't revisit. It's just up and out of them.
Yeah,
But
I didn't work for me. Not my jam. Yeah.
so, and it's good that you say that because not all interventions work for
Mm-hmm.
everyone.
Yeah.
And you have to find the one that's going to work best for you. So, I want to talk a little bit about just feeling comfortable to go to therapy in the first place, the stigma around therapy. Okay. So, this is something that we're very much aware of in our society, where if you say to someone, oh, I'm going to therapy, oh, like, ooh, they're crazy, right? It's this sort of go-to response, like, what's the matter with them? And I see you have something to say.
Mm. I think most of the people that we grew up with are in therapy. Like, I don't think in our circle therapy is stigmatized, In the bubble that we grew up in, where I don't, because every single one of my friends is in, has been, will, it's not a stigma. Sometimes we share the same therapist. But I know in the Black culture, therapy is frowned upon, and maybe people think, oh, you shouldn't be telling other people your business, or let's pray about it. And
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and then this brings me to a beef I have. You want to know what my beef is?
You're
Be,
gonna tell me.
be careful who you get your therapy from. People think they're therapists. They think they're like, I don't know, especially the religious, the spiritual ones, because they think because they are in a position, they're a pastor, they're a leader in the church, they can do therapy. And they can't. They give out all types of wrong information. So make sure your person is credentialed. You can go to a Christian therapist who has a degree. Don't just
Mm-hmm.
go to somebody who's a Christian therapist because he loves the Lord. Make sure your people are credentialed, just like you wouldn't go to somebody who is unlicensed for medical procedures. Well, you shouldn't. You shouldn't go to a therapist who doesn't have the proper training. And then, of course, when I get to a point where I can talk about my divorce, I'll talk about the bad advice I received. That's the teaser. And you
Okay.
know what I'm talking about.
Okay. So you kind of went off in a different direction. So I'm going
Uh-huh.
to bring it back to what I was mentioning about stigma. I agree. I think today we are much better at normalizing therapy than we were even 5, 10 years ago. We are seeing that more, let's say, celebrities, people in the spotlight coming out and talking about their challenges with their mental health, which I think has really helped to normalize this for society. But there's still a stigma around it.
Mm-hmm.
There is still the concern that you're crazy if you need to seek therapy, or what's wrong with you, you can't do this by yourself. And you mentioned the Black and African American community. There is a huge cultural component to
Mm-hmm.
this, enormous. I know that culturally people think we don't talk about what goes on in the home outside of the home. Um, and I can name again the Black African American community, the Hispanic community, different Asian populations have the same mentality around that. We keep our things private,
Yeah.
but by keeping them private, that continues to be internalized and festers within you. So when I hear of a client saying, my parents don't believe in this,
Mm-hmm.
or my spouse doesn't believe in this, they are breaking the cycle for themselves because they recognize that they need some support.
Right.
And
Yeah.
they recognize, stigma or not, I'm going to do this because I need to do this. Now, I don't know if the parent or the spouse will ever come around to understanding the need, but when people are able to say, culturally, we don't, but guess what? I am, because I need some support that my family will not be able to provide for me. And so I'm always really happy when I can, hear that from someone and then be a part of normalizing that experience for someone.
And that person might be the one to break the generational trauma.
Yes.
Um, but another thing I'm thinking of is therapy is not inexpensive.
Mm.
And
Mm-hmm.
so, if you are strapped financially, you may forego the therapy because you can't afford it. There are programs that sliding scale.
Mm-hmm.
You know about that better than I, but um, when you mention celebrities, a lot of people think therapy's for rich people, you
Mm.
know?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you're right. It can be quite pricey. We know that. And when you hear of a fee, $150 an hour, $200 an hour, you're thinking, holy smokes, how can I do that? And yes, you're absolutely going to find those therapists out there. But I know from personal experience, you can find a lot of sliding scale therapists. You can find income driven therapy. So you're able to provide to, the prospective therapist, would love to start working with you. Um, and then, and I've done this many, many times. Well, what do you think you can afford? What is going to be comfortable for you? And someone might say $40. Someone might say, I can only do five. Um, and there was a time where I was absolutely willing and able to take those clients, and I still do. If a client calls me and says, I really can't afford X, Y, and Z, I'm always the one to say, tell me what you can afford. Now, I'm not saying that all therapists do this. A lot of therapists are like, no, this is my rate and this is what you pay. And clearly, that is not going to be the therapist for you because you don't want to be stressing about the financial piece about you
Yeah.
getting help.
Yeah.
So make the phone calls and find somebody that is willing to offer their services at a comfortable price point for you.
Right. And then community mental health centers.
Yes.
And then also, if you endured some type of trauma, say it's divorce, it's sexual abuse, loss of a child, there might be local support groups that you can join to help you
Right.
process that. So,
Yeah.
and those are typically free. So
Mm-hmm.
I think there are resources. Just get on your phone, get on the internet, and look up mental health services, and
Right.
hopefully you can find somebody. But then also, if you do have the financial ability to pay for a therapist, I find that word of mouth is really good, because sometimes you find somebody in the phone book and they don't have,
Phone
it may,
phone book. She said phone
oh
book.
my gosh, I'm old. I'm
Yes.
old. Yeah.
But
I don't
but
think my kids have ever looked anything up in a phone book.
no,
It
they
just
haven't.
dawned on me.
But I do want to point out that health insurance companies have networks of therapists.
Mm-hmm.
So just like you go to a doctor and you have your $20 copay, you might go to your therapist and have a $20 copay. So you want to also refer back to those therapists that are in your network. And then you can absolutely seek therapy through them for a cost of just a copay. So you don't always have to come out of pocket for
Right.
those $200, $300 sessions.
Yes. And I don't want to be a negative Nelly, but there was a
But
time in my life, where I found a therapist in my network, didn't
mm-hmm.
have to pay a penny. It was horrible. It
Right.
was horrible. Remember, I called you after the
Yes.
sessions and
Yes.
you're like, this is not how
Yeah.
so I'm blessed in that I have the financial wherewithal to go out of network and pay out of
Mm-hmm.
pocket.
Mm-hmm.
So just because you don't find somebody in that network, you seek, you have to find the right match.
Okay. So this leads me to rapport. Um, Having that relationship with your therapist is like 90% of the game, right? If I feel safe and comfortable with my therapist, these issues that I'm working on with the therapist, it will be a lot easier for me to get there, as opposed to not liking who you're with. So you
Mm-hmm.
do have to vet your therapist, right? It's like I'm going to go shopping and I want a blue dress and I can't find the blue dress to save my life. But you keep looking for that blue dress. You have to keep looking for the therapist that you're going to feel the most comfortable with.
Yeah.
And do not, let me emphasize, do not be afraid to break up with your therapist.
Okay.
Okay?
Yeah.
If they are not working for you, it is totally your right and prerogative to say, this isn't working. I'm going to go and seek therapy elsewhere, because this is your journey. And if
Yeah.
that person in that room is not working for you, you need to find somebody that can be on your journey with you.
Yeah. I'm going to tell a little breakup joke. My son is in therapy, or was. And I say, hey, how's therapy going? He's like, I'm going to stop seeing this guy. I said, what happened? And he's in an office with like all women. And he asked his therapist about the difference between communication with women. And his therapist said, oh man, they're crazy. I don't know what to tell you. So, so he's like, yeah, that's not going to work. And that
Right.
was the last time he saw that guy.
Right.
Oh God.
And for Zachary, he knew in that moment, this
Oh
is
yeah,
not the
this
person for
isn't
me.
working. This isn't
Yeah.
working.
Yeah, because I respect women and I love women. So if you're coming at me
Uh,
with that,
oh man, they're crazy. That was funny. That was funny.
so we want to thank you for joining the Two Soka Supplement. I hope you learned a little bit about therapy, why seek it, who to find to help you along your journey, and just how you can be proactive in your own life by seeking this out. So thank you for joining us with our supplement. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
No longer network.